Welcome to the latest episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from NY Fights and Communities Digital News. What's going on, Gail?
Hey, we're going to get everyone caught up with what's going on in the world of boxing.
Right. After taking last week off due to some issues, uh, Gail was feeling under the weather, so I just said let's scrap it and come back next week. We're back. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube shows, podcast slash blog and website discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you want to find out all information regarding the show, please go to the site p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to email us with questions, thoughts, suggestions, etc., you can do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll have links. You will provide. You got links to where to find us all over social media. Um, we're on Twitter, Facebook slash Meta, uh, uh, YouTube, Tumblr, IG. Also links to where to check out the podcast on various platforms, uh, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Google Podcasts, be it Anchor, anywhere and everywhere else in between. Also links to where you can donate. Got a Cash Me PayPal donation link. Now that it's tax season, if you got some spare change left over, or if you got a good refund and want to shoot some coin to the Pound for Pound Box Report, please do. I don't care if it's $1, uh, $5, $10. It doesn't matter to me. It will help the overall production behind the show. Um, Even though I'm not Beachbody coaching right now, I still suggest you check out Beachbody on Demand. Take advantage of the 2-week trial throughout the year. You can get all the programs on Beachbody on Demand for 2 weeks, free access to them. So whatever interests, whatever fitness goals you're looking for, whatever fitness programs is you're looking for, Beachbody on Demand, it provides it all. Uh, be it the classic P90X series, be it Bar Blend, Pio, Morning Meltdown, which the ladies love to love, be it the challenging 6 weeks of the work, the 645 program that went public December of 2021, or the boxing based program. If you're looking for a program that's boxing related, check out 10 rounds 8-week program, which consists 3 days a week of resistance weight training, 2 days a week of cardio. I've done it multiple times. It's really good, really effective. um like I said, Daniel will be joining us soon. He's joining us right now, as a matter of fact. um Daniel from the Inscriber, as well as for Boxing News. What's going on?
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen?
Indeed. Let's get things going, and let's start our recaps. In the UK, Manchester Arena in Manchester, England, to be exact. Because we were off last week, we didn't really preview this fight. Grudge match between Amir Khan and Kell Brook. Uh, Longtime followers of the sport know the backdrop, know the history. They're not fans of each other. Uh, uh, Not frenemies, but outright enemies, bad blood for years. Um, there's been talks about them fighting. It should have happened back when Kell Brook was welterweight champion back in 2014, 2015, 2016, right? Unfortunately, it did not. Finally, even though they're past their prize, we got to see it this past weekend. And I go to you on this one, Gail. Um, Brook won by 6 round stoppage. I was personally surprised. How can I put it? I'm not surprised that Brook got the win. I'm surprised at how the fight went. He dominated from first round. Uh, Khan had no answers. Brook hurt him in the first round and kept him hurt pretty much throughout the fight. Bullied him, punished him all throughout. Finished him in round 6. Just a fusillade of shots. Uh, Khan, in the aftermath, looked like he had been through a car accident, a pileup, just face just splattered and bruised and just beaten up. While Brook looked like he didn't even go through a sparring session. Your Were you surprised at how the fight went, and where does where do the fighters go from here? Personally, I think it's time for Khan to retire. I've heard others say Brook that he should just right off into the sunset after this win. There's other fights out there that's possible for him. The future for your analysis of the fight and the future for both men.
Well, I have to say first, I was not truly enthusiastic about this fight until the few days leading up to it. And I had to give it to the British fans who were so enthusiastic, who were so into it. They kind of swept me up into the whole thing. So, sure, I sat down and watched it. And I wasn't terribly surprised about the way Brook handled himself. Brook is the bigger man. Brook is the harder hitter. What Amir Khan has always had to offer is speed, skill, but as he's been beaten up over the years and taken some really tough losses, those skills have just taken damage. He was very smart to come train with Brian McIntyre in the Bomac camp and be around, the quality personnel, including Bud Crawford in that camp, and I'm sure they did their best with him, but it brought to mind the saying, the mind is willing, but the flesh is weak. Khan is just simply shot. He had nothing to offer. He had no power to threaten Brook, even with his busted up, held together by a couple of screws face. And you could just see it. Once Brook had taken a handful of shots from Khan, he thought, this is no threat. This is easy work. He just had to not make a mistake and put his face right in front of Khan's reach anywhere, and he was successful. And yeah, he just beat the snot out of him. It was ugly. I think Bomac gave Amir, a two-time world champion and an Olympic medalist, every opportunity. But once you get halfway through the fight, I think he was going to, throw it in if it wasn't going to get stopped, and hope, he fortunately, Brook took that out of his hands. Khan should never, ever step in a boxing ring again, ever. And he can go back to his reality TV career and his celebrity career in Great Britain. He is very well known outside boxing. I hope he's hung on to his money, but he really needs to be done. I don't think Kell Brook's going to be done. Not after that performance. He's going to be lured back. I'm really not sure what sort of fight he can take. He'd be an excellent gatekeeper for the new generation if he wants to put himself out there. Although, again, I worry about that damaged face taking another shot. It wouldn't take much, to leave serious damage the rest of his life. But, these guys get a big win like that, and they're itchy to get out there. Very few guys can walk away, There aren't a lot of Joe Calzaghes around. Hopefully, Brook will take plenty of time off, enjoy his win, enjoy his victory lap among his fans, and really think very carefully about what he wants to do if he's going to return. But Amir Khan, no, do not license him, lock the door, send him away. He's done.
Daniel, Khan looked washed and got whitewashed on the night of the fight, right? To Gail's last point, he should go, and he basically acknowledged as much during the post fight, saying that he doesn't want to take that kind of punishment anymore. He said he lacked motivation in the fight. He said something was off, and he's basically admitting retirement without saying no mas, right? Brook, on the other hand, his kind of a rejuvenation, if you will. His rep is back up after this win, particularly locally, and throughout British circles. There's talk of a possible fight with a Conor Benn at a catch weight, Chris Eubanks Sr. At a catch weight, right? If you're handling him, or if you're Kell Brook, do you take this win and just say and bid adieu, or given the possible big money opportunities about it with a Eubank Jr., with a Ben. Would you be tempted to go for those fights? One of them, if you will. Your thoughts?
Well, in that situation, it's very kind of depending what direction you're gonna go, because everything depends upon has he saved his money? Does he feel he can actually go? Because you can do Conor Ben at a catch weight. That works. That works fine to a certain extent, but I don't think, at least outside of the UK, you have to already start looking outside of the UK, because what was Conor Ben's last fight against Chris Algieri? Already stepping outside of the UK circles, trying to get noticed in the welterweight picture, which, let's be honest, is dominated by this side of the Atlantic. Going to Kell, Brook, to me, at least in that sense, I get why they're doing it. They think it's an easy fight, but it would make it just more of a domestic thing at the end, and I don't think it would benefit Brook. Eubanks, I wouldn't touch. I would not touch it, because first of all, he had the damage happen to him because of the fight with Triple G, and that was at middleweight. And I'm not saying that Eubank has the same power as Triple G in that sense, but that weight disparity that would happen, because obviously Eubanks at this point, he's not going to go below middleweight. He's just not. That means you have to step up and do a probably catch weight between middleweight and super middleweight, and because of that damage, I would just stay away from it. I would stay away from it. I would honestly, looking at the options going into it, I will walk away with this. Like, you just got the fight. You just got to finish the fight that people have wanted you to have for a decade. And let's be honest. I'll be honest in my sense. The way the fight went, it's exactly how I thought it would have gone a decade ago. I thought that Kell Brook would dominate Amir Khan the way he did. And just ended on that front. Just right off into the sunset. You're young enough where you can become a trainer, you can become a commentator, and you still have your wits about you. And there's always enough stories of fighters, especially when it comes to the orbital bone, where they try to fight, they try to go on, and you wind up in a situation where, like an Israel Vasquez, who's permanently blind in one eye, Antonio Margarito never looks the same again. So I would take that as a cautionary tale for Brook. I would just walk away, like you walk away on a high.
I can understand both arguments. Both argument. One argument being, Brook, you got the sweetest win of your career. You made a lot of money in this fight. Move on, call it a day, retire. At the same time, there's a part of me that's tempted to see him fight again, because he did look well. And it will be interesting to me how he would look against a Eubank Jr., because size advantage, I know that means a lot, but I think just boxing skill alone, he's a better boxer than Eubank, a much better boxer than Eubank. I know he's with Roy Jones now, but I haven't seen that much improvement in his style or technique. Matter of fact, he's fighting more like Roy Jones, and he's trying to fight more like Roy Jones, and that's going to get him exposed, because he's not that kind of fighter. Didn't have that kind of quickness and hand-eye coordination, etc., etc. Conor Ben has looked very, very well in recent outings, right? You can see the improvement, but I had forgot where I had forgot when he was buckled uh, a few times early on, and I could see a scenario if they were to fight, say, at 150, 151, Brook could get to him. So that's in the back of my head. I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm going to be satisfied if Brook decides to say, okay, I don't want no more, I would be happy with that. If he decides to go with one more fight, I would be happy with that. I'm just going to wait back, and see what he does, and applaud him for the way he performed against Khan, because yeah, that was something. He bulldozed this dude. He dog walked Khan from beginning to end, and the UK fans, they got a lot of satisfaction out of it. It's like a chapter closed in their eyes, and the fact that ESPN Plus picked up the card, that mean it got attention all over, especially in the United States. And I saw plenty of U.S. boxing fans on Twitter watching the fight and comment on the fight throughout social media. So it was a success all around. On the undercard, I'm going back to you, Daniel. An interesting fight took place, and I see Olaf comments from Olaf the Almighty. I'm gonna put it up here in the chat. Appreciate Olaf for checking out the show live. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well. I'm gonna put it up here again. He says, Eubank Brook, let's do it. Again, I wouldn't be upset if Eubank was to fight him, Eubank Jr., so long as it happens, if you get him to come down to a catch weight, 50, 55, 56, 57, somewhere around that. Yeah, I wouldn't be upset at that. On the undercard, Daniel, I'm going back to you. Interesting fight that took place, ladies boxing, as Natasha Jonas, um, perennial challenger at 130, 135, uh, uh, gave Katie Taylor a heck of a fight a couple fights back. Their rivalry goes back to the amateurs, right? She also fought former WBC champion Terry Harper. I thought beat her that night, right? Well, she moved all the way up to 154 pounds. Fought a lady by the name, fought Chris Namus for the vacant WBO junior middleweight title. That belt was vacated by Clarissa Shields, and surprised again in that Jonas didn't just win, Daniel. She dominated the much larger woman, hurt her in the first round, put her down in the first round, finished her off in the second. Surprisingly light work. And yeah, Jonas, who was come up short in title fights before, she's a champion at 154 pounds. That may be in my mind, that may be the biggest surprise of the entire weekend.
It is, considering that you mentioned there was a history of always the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to her in title changes. And like I said, this is a dramatic jump. This is a very dramatic jump to go into it. This is a Samantha Serrano type of jump in weight classes. And to go from, like I said, from lightweight to junior middleweight, and to not only look good but dominate the way she did at her age, also too, maybe shows that it probably would have been at her best interest that she should have done this move a while back, and hopefully it does lead to something well, because she was obviously, you mentioned, in the Katie, she fought Katie Taylor. She did a pretty good job. She was in her weight class, although I would heavily advise against it. But wouldn't it be good, like, to say, like, you were the person that fought both Katie Taylor and Clarissa Shields, and we know Clarissa could still make 154 if she feels like it. So it's a very good, interesting story. Very good performance. I'm happy that she finally was able to win a championship. And like I said, if you can't get Clarissa, there's 3 other belt holders that you cannot unify against. Let's see what you can do.
One of those belt holders, Gail, at 154 pounds, is Hannah Rankin, who has the WBA title. She won that vacant belt November last year. she was ringside doing commentary for Jonas's win. I'm already hearing possibility of the two ladies fighting, maybe later on this year. Your breakdown of Jonas's win, as well as your early thoughts on the possible fight between Jonas and Hannah Rankin, unification bout it would be at junior middleweight.
Natasha Jonas has been on the losing end of some razor thin fights. She lost a very narrow unanimous decision to Katie Taylor. I mean, it was a moral victory, if not a victory on the cards, to fight her as close as she did. And, it was also razor thin with Terry Harper. Um, Now she's gotten this tremendous victory and she went out and took it. That's what was so shocking in a good way. She has never been known as a huge punching machine. I mean, earlier in her career, 6 round fights, yes, she got stoppages, but nothing like this. This was a full on beat down knockout with a TKO, on the on BoxRec, but make no mistake, she blasted through her opponent. So that just changes the stakes. It's a win, and against all your other wins, every win is equal on paper. But this was a potentially career transforming sort of win for her, and breathed new life into her career. She's 37. It's not uncommon for these women's champions to be older with records that don't reflect a lot of fights, because especially in the weight divisions much up above lightweight, there's just not a lot of competition. So I say take on anyone who will get in the ring with you, honey. Anybody with a belt, anyone can get it. That should be your attitude, because the clock is ticking. Your value is never going to be higher than it is right now. And I say go for whatever you can put together. She can't wait around for those handful of competitors, who are worthy of a big fight. They all have their own dance cards filled. Katie Taylor is occupied. 154 is, a bit of a reach for her anyway. Um, the truth is this fight was, fought down essentially, at welterweight. So Jonas has got some options, not a lot though, and she can't let a lot of time go by. Her last fight was in November. She was back in the ring in February. I like that. Let's see her back in the ring late spring, early summer, um, and see what else she could do. She needs to ride some momentum here. But for everybody who says they don't like watching women's boxing, show them this fight. 2 rounds. She took care of business. Boom. It does happen. Good for her.
100%. Whether it's Rankin, whether it's let's just say the Swede, um, Burgold, who has the BC belt. Uh, Strike while the iron is hot. Um, when it comes to Jonas, uh, the option, it's a window right there. It's a win. The window is now open for her in terms of big money opportunities, at junior middleweight. If a unification bout can come within the next, by the end of this year, by goodness, take it, because she just, one, she deserves it. Two, she's good enough to become a unified champion, and three, she's a moneymaker. She gets a lot of attention in England. The fans will come out to see her, and I'm sure she could get the WBC champion Burgo to come there, and a fight against Rankin that would draw a decent crowd and make a decent payday for her at 154. So by all means, I agree with you, Gail. Absolutely. Um, while there's options for her, damn it, take advantage of it, for sure. Let's move on to some other fights. And what we're going to do is try to split these fights up, right? Just to cut down on time. Start over in Russia. I'll take this fight. coming up. Jorge Linares fighting in an eliminator, WBC eliminator against a Russian fighter by the name of Abdullaev. Uh, Kudos to past guest of Pound for Pound Box Report, Bo, head fellow senior writer and head of media relations over at Three Kings Boxing. To get your latest source for boxing, for pure boxing information, please go to threekingsboxing.com. Shout out to the fellows over there. Shout out to Bo, head of Three Kings 2K, lead journalist Bakari, fellow senior writer Jarrell, editor Red. Anyway, Bo, he watched the fight live, did the recap with Three Kings, so I'm gonna rely on that. Linares got off to an early start, right? Was outboxing the Russian Abdullaev, but towards the middle rounds, 7, 8, Abdullaev, who was the stronger guy, even though he was getting beat early on, he was walking through. He was the bigger guy walking through Linares' punches. He started to come on. He focused on the body in round 8, and Linares started to wear down slowly but surely. Got to call out ESPN Plus here. The fight aired there early in the morning. Unfortunately, the feed went out at the 11th round, which pissed everybody off. Why? Because Abdullaev in the 12th and final round caught Linares, put him down with a left hook, put him down a couple more times, ended the fight in the 12th round. The problem is the live viewers on ESPN Plus, no one saw it. Subsequently, there have been videos of the fight that's been put up. The 12th round is missing. But trust me on this one, the fight ended in the 12th round. And I'll go to you. And no, I won't go to you, Gail. The question now becomes for Linares, is he done? Age 36. He's had a long career, but much like Khan, his main weakness has been chin, weak punch resistance, and he fades late. And that came up in this fight. The skills, unquestionable. Hand speed, unquestionable. But after such a long and distinguished career, this fight against Abdullaev was an attempt to get back into the title hunt. You just don't know where he goes from now. And given his age, given the attrition, I question whether he should go on. Personally, I think he should call it a day. Will he? Probably not. But it would behoove him, in my opinion, to say, no more. You don't have anything else to prove. You've done what you've done. Rest on your laurels in terms of what you've done and just say goodbye with boxing and call it a day. I'll go to you, Gail, to talk about this fight that took place on the zone. Uh, Card headlined by Jaime Munguia, former champion at 154 pounds, has moved up to 160 pounds right now. Fought a guy by the name of Demetrius Ballard. Stopped him in 3. Easy work for Munguia. My question more has to do with what's next, right? There have been calls for Munguia to fight, to step it up, and his promoters, De La Hoya specifically, to challenge him, put him in a title fight, put him in against one of the best. The WBO, late this afternoon, ordered a fight between him and Alan Canuli, I think it is, for a WBO, I think interim world title fight. Your response to the calls that De La Hoya essentially stopped protecting this dude, your reaction to the decision of the WBO, is it time for Munguia to step it up and face someone real, a real dog at middleweight?
Well, let's talk about Munguia first of all. His career is not truly controlled by Oscar. It's controlled by Zanfer Promotions. Zanfer is his promoter. Golden Boy's a co-promoter. And this is traditionally the way Zanfer brings its fighters up. Cautiously, carefully. He's young. He's got plenty of time ahead of him. It's not like he's 30. You know, we just talked about Natasha Jonas. She's 37. She's burning daylight. Jaime Munguia, 25 years old, man. You know, I get it. He's had 39 fights. You know, well, that happens to these young Mexican fighters. You know, good for him. And he has won a title. Let us remember, he's shockingly beat Saddam Ali. He also beat Gabe Rosado.
Shockingly, excuse me for interrupting. Shockingly, I
Saddam
was going
Ali,
for
that was considered an upset at the time.
that's a hardcore heads. I saw
Well,
that coming a mile away.
yeah, but nevertheless, he did win a title at 22 years old. What did he want to do after that? He wanted to take on Triple G. That's what he wanted to do. And he was not permitted by the sanctioning organizations to do that because they thought it would be too dangerous. The California State Athletic Commission said, nah, not going to happen. So, how interesting would it be now, several years down the road, to revisit that fight? Well, we've got to wait for the Canelo sweepstakes to shake out. And Munguia is just within range of that universe in boxing right now, that inner circle population, for him to see how all the chips fall and then make a decision. So I would people talking a lot of shit about Munguia not facing worthwhile opposition. I think considering how he's come up, who he's faced, how he's performed, his only truly shaky moment, in my opinion, was the fact that he really did lose to Dennis Hogan back in 2019.
Yes,
Everybody
he did.
knows it. Everybody saw it. He had a bad night. He got out of there. Thank God he had the local judges giving him a little bit of a hand, although he had 2 American judges, so it wasn't completely on their side. But he had the crowd behind him. He was in Monterrey, Mexico. So he lucked out with that majority decision. He needed to get out of town, stay out of town after that one. But he learned from it. He's fought his way back. He has looked good. Ballard was no pushover. Ballard's solid, not inspiring, not crazy talented, but good at everything. Ballard has been a significant sparring partner for a lot of names, so he knows how to handle himself in the ring. It was a good fight. It was a great fight to be staged in Munguia's hometown in Tijuana. That's how you build up fan bases. San Diego is a hop, skip, and a jump away. We're going to have a fairly major fight card here in a couple of weeks. I could see Munguia coming to this side of the border. He held a media workout here in San Diego prior to the fight, and I guarantee you some truly hardcore fans did drive south of the border. I was not one of them to go see it. So I don't think anyone needs to be horribly anxious about Munguia's career yet. But he's ready. He is ready. If they can find him worthy opposition, they shouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't hesitate really with the state of the middleweight division right now. I'd put him in front of anybody. And it wouldn't destroy his career at 25 if he lost to one of them. Dare to be great.
Okay. Do you think they will? I mentioned how the WBO has ordered that he fight Alam Kanuli. Do you think Zanfer Golden Boy? Do you think that fight will go through?
Well, that is a tough one because this is a guy who brings the belt to the table and almost nothing else. No name recognition, no butts in the seats, no fan base. That would be a tough one. So the fight has to be sold completely on Munguia's back and the fact that it's a title fight. That one, there'd need to be some pencil sharpening to see if that really worked. Now, if the WBO orders it, then we have to see what position they decide to take.
They ordered it.
I'm thinking.
Go ahead, my bad.
Well, I'm thinking I'm thinking that one in particular, they might not be so hot to take, but it is a title, and it does put him in position to be more attractive to some of those bigger names. So maybe they make the investment. And he has been shown, pardon me, to put butts in seats in Tijuana.
I'm leery the fight will ever happen. It's not a question of, okay, on the surface, it might be an issue of marketability. I just think it's a question of ability. How can I'm trying to be, I don't want to sound like a jerk in saying this, but
Call
I
it as
think
you
I
see it,
I
man.
think
Call it
I
as you
think
see
Alec,
it.
I question whether Zanford Golden Boy will make that fight happen because I think Alakanule beats him pretty easy. People don't know about him, but I've seen him fight. This dude is the goods. Talented southpaw, can box, can punch, can move, power in both hands. I think he'll be a matchup nightmare for Munguia, who's questioned in many people's mine included, is his defense. He can still get hit. We saw that in the questionable win that you alluded to, Gail. I wonder how much improvement he's made since then. Really, and that's a bad fight, and it's not for a full title; it's an interim title as well. What's the point of them trying to go through that, going for that,
Yeah.
when they can possibly land a fight with Triple G? I don't think they want
Well,
none of Rala Kululi.
that's the fight you want. However, it's possible that with Triple G, assuming he wins a fight that gets on the books in April with Ryota Murata, and if in fact he gets teed up to fight Canelo, he's off the table for another year. And I would not be surprised if that's the way it goes for Triple G. Win or lose against Canelo, he rides off into the sunset. He's done. He is done. Triple G would be fine with one more big paycheck. Um, I think he's I think he's been very smart with his money. This is not a man that lives real large. He lives a very comfortable life, and he can live extremely well on the money he's made should he decide to go back to Kazakhstan or Eastern Europe, or even Germany. So, Munguia may not want to wait around for Triple G if his dance card gets filled. Um, but a fight can certainly be made with Demetrius Andrade. So, unfortunately,
I don't think they want that fight either.
well, well, but he's got to fight somebody. That's the bottom line. And at age 25, I think you're willing to take a chance on yourself. Because who else is left? Let's start thinking about it. Who the hell else is left at this point? They're going to have to start fighting each other to get anywhere. They're just not going to have any more options. The problem is Canelo deals the cards for everybody, around this weight division, even though Canelo was never going to fight at 160 again. And Munguia is just going to have to see what is available out there once Canelo makes his mind up and his team about their offers, which we'll talk about later in the show. I would say in the next couple of weeks, he's going to have to make the call.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we were February 22nd. The order came down from the WBO late this afternoon for Munguia to fight Alakanule interim WBO middleweight title. They have 10 days to try to negotiate a deal. If not, a first bid will be ordered. We'll monitor the situation and see what happens regarding that. I'll go to you, Daniel. Last fight we're going to talk about here is took place a couple of weekends back. Uh, the return of Daniel Jacobs after his very mid performance against Gabe Rosado last time out. Many people felt he lost. Returned to the ring, traveled over to the UK and fought John Ryder. Lost by I believe it was split decision loss. I wasn't able to see the fight because I was at work, but I was checking out my boxing Twitter when it was happening. A lot of people felt that Jacobs won. My issue with this, Daniel, is the fact that the fight even was this close to begin with. Uh, to me, this is a sign that either physically Jacobs has slipped or his head is not in it anymore. The Jacobs that gave Canelo a good scrap a few years back, the Jacobs that gave Triple G even fights, in my opinion, back in 2017. The Jacobs that destroyed Peter Quillen, knocked him out in 2 rounds. To me, it's apparent that that guy is not there anymore. Serious questions now after this fight against Ryder, whether he should even continue on if his head is not in it, he doesn't look physically to be the fighter that he was. Why even continue?
Yeah, it became unfortunately a standard of what the last few Daniel Jacobs fights have been, which is he starts out really well, he starts boxing, he starts trying to find a way to land his left hook, his right hand, and then in the middle rounds, he mentally checked out a little bit, which let John Ryder pick up a little bit of steam. Not enough for me for him to win, in my opinion. I believe this is one of the textbook cases of UK home cooking. But at the same time, I also remember what he said in the lead up to this fight because somebody asked him about the Rosado fight. He admitted he mentally checked out. He was going through the motions. And if you're already doing that on that fight, which was almost 2 years ago, it would not surprise if you're doing it again in this instance because you probably thought you would, he probably thought he was going to get skilled to beat Ryder, and like I said, in my opinion, he did beat Ryder, but you were not going to, unfortunately, it's proven in the cards, you were not going to win against a UK fighter in the UK, especially when that UK, when there's a title situation on the line, because now this puts John Ryder as, yeah, back of the line as far as dark horses, but it does put him in the Canelo sweepstakes as far as the mandatory. So I do feel bad when it comes to Jacobs. You can tell, like, as soon as I said the card, the announcement, he left, didn't really say much. I think mentally he's already checked out, unfortunately. Because even though he looked good in the beginning of the fight, by the middle rounds he seemed to go through that motion with the Gabriel fight, going through the motions, and unfortunately that's probably what he has left in his career because going down to middleweight probably would not be good for him at this age. And unless you're right now, unless you're fighting Canelo, there's really not a lot of options to 168 outside of working with the PBC, and the matchroom situation kind of makes it difficult. So I this could be, yeah, this could be it for Danny Jacobs, who was a champion, whose story could be a movie, but I think this is the end of the line for him.
Absolutely, I agree 100% on that. It looks like this is very much the end. Let me go back for a second in terms of Brook. I should have mentioned this. It slipped my mind. Um, on the undercard, young 20-year-old kid by the name of um, Adam Azim, right? Third round TKO over Jordan Ellison. Um, the reason I mention this is because of Azim. Azim being much ballyhooed, a lot of hype over in British boxing circles, multiple time national champion, number one ranked youth amateur in the world during his amateur days, only 20 years old. He considers Amir Khan as his idol, but I watched the fight while covering the Brook Khan card for Three Kings Boxing, and um, just keep an eye on Azim. I mentioned while he idolizes Brook, to me, I see a lot of similarities with Nasim Ahmed in terms of his swag, how he carries himself, how he fights to a certain degree. Uh, Not as wild as Hamed, but the movement is there, the athleticism is there, the fluidity in his punches, the power. He even did a backflip to celebrate his victory. And yeah, he's trained by Shane McGuigan, who's always talking about him, said he's easily going to be a world champion. He's predicting that he's going to transcend the sport. So yeah, you may not have heard of him. There's been talk about him before within England, but I'm saying it here because it's a U.S. based podcast. Adam Azim, 20-year-old Brit. He got a brother also by the name of Hassan, Azim, who also fought on this card, but Adam in particular, um, he's one to look out for moving forward. I like him a lot. I like his style. I like his swag. Uh, the natural ability just jumped off the screen when I saw him on the undercard of Khan, Brook, Adam Azim, just putting it out there in the atmosphere for the fans and for folks, for those who are unfamiliar with him. Moving forward, let's move on to some news here, Gail. Look, there's been a lot of talk about Fury and Whyte. Uh, Boxing Twitter was on alert all over Twitter as yesterday was the deadline in order for Whyte to sign his portion of the contract, right? Went on and on and on and on. Actually, the deadline passed until we heard late yesterday evening, early last night, that Whyte actually signed the deal. Gail, why do you think it took so long for Whyte to sign his portion of this deal? Did he do it just for drama purposes? Uh, what up with that?
Oh, that's a power play for sure. Good for him. Dillian's no dummy. He knows how to do business. He's going to make Tyson cool his heels, sweat it out till the last possible second. And hey, yeah, maybe he and his team were really reading through, carefully looking at every line. But I think it was just he did it because he could. Let the games begin. The trash talk and the interaction leading up to this will be wildly entertaining. Um, Tyson Fury has made his feelings clear regularly, often, loudly on social media. I'm trying to think of the last thing he called Whyte. I mean, he's gotten very
I
creative.
mean, other than calling him Dasa multiple times.
He's called him some other things lately, which just made me laugh. I mean, you just have to lean in to the ridiculousness of it and the theater of it. And this is part of boxing at the highest levels. Have fun with it. It is a serious, dangerous sport. And if you can add these elements of theater and drama to it, great. I say, let the games begin.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're scheduled to fight April 23rd. Can't remember the location right now.
Wembley.
Wembley. Thank you. Thank you. Wembley Arena. I'm sure there will be a formal announcement and news conference coming up in the next week or so. I'll go to you, Daniel. On our last episode, we talked of Ryan Garcia and his return to the ring, right? And news outside the ring in terms of Garcia, as word has come down that he is split with Eddie Reynoso, now being trained by Joe Goossen. Let's face it, kind of saw the writings on the wall in terms of the split between the two. Canelo, we've talked about in the past episode. Canelo's talked about how has questioned Garcia's discipline, right? And he's moved on to Goossen. And my thing is, okay, Goossen is not known as being a slacker in there in the gym as well. Reynoso has a reputation. If you're going to be part of his team, you're going to have to work. Same thing with Goossen. He's known for fighters who work with him are known to be in grade A tip top shape. How do you think the pairing of Goossen and Garcia will go leading into this upcoming fight?
You mentioned if he's expecting a much lighter experience at training camp, he's going to be in for a rude awakening. Because Joe Goossen does not play when it comes to training camps. He is as much about discipline as the Reynosos are. But I did read next week one boxing scene where Garcia did talk about one of the reasons for the split. It was just mainly time. He wanted more particular time with the Reynosos in particular when it came to training him. And unfortunately, this is one of the situations always when a trainer blows up and becomes somebody that's sought after by a lot of fighters. There's only so many hours in the day that you can focus on. And with Reynoso, with both father and son, you have a situation where they may not have enough time to even focus on some of the fighters that's going into because think about it. You have Canelo, you have you have still have Oscar Valdez, as far as I know. You have Andrew Reeves, and not to mention a slew of fighters, including I think the kid's name was Sosevedo, who put on a hell of a performance in that undercard for the Jaime Munguia fight. Arguably beat a top level prospect at that. But there's unfortunately some Polly's one of the things that Ryan does need. He does need probably a little bit more personal attention. And Goossen probably can give him that in as far as personal attention now. As far as discipline, he's gonna learn that it's not gonna be an easy situation when it comes to Joe Goossen. He's known to be hard on his fighters. And for Ryan, he does need somebody that will keep him on the up and up and make sure that it's a business relationship when it comes to him and Ryan. And actually interesting when I thought about it, when I first heard about this, Ryan, we always have to know, has been a bit of a proxy in the animosity between Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo in the way they split. And the fact that Ryan was in the Reynoso, obviously Reynoso camp, but still signed to Golden Boy. Who would have thought that in that relationship, Oscar won, technically? It may not, because Ryan may not have burned the bridge, but if he's willing to leave a situation where he could be groomed by Canelo to be like the next major superstar, Mexican American superstar, kind of shows where where his head is at probably. And I say good luck because Joe's gonna bring it to him.
Indeed, and of course, Garcia is making his return to the ring April 9th against Emmanuel to go. Fight is going to happen in San Antonio, I believe, at the Alamo Dome. We teased this next story in talking about Jaime Munguia. We mentioned these two fighters' names. That's one Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. A lot of news mentioned about the two about the two men, as there's an offer on the table. News came down last week for Canelo, a two-fight deal with Matchroom. First fight of that deal is a proposed uh, fight of Canelo moving up to 175 pounds to take on WBA champion Dimitri Bivol. Second part of that deal is a trilogy with Gennady Golovkin. Is being held up right now because Golovkin still has issues with the deal. With Golovkin and Matchroom still has some issues, I think, to work through. Your thoughts on this two-fight deal, Bivol, Golovkin, and do you think in the end Golovkin will agree to everything, and the possibility of a third fight with Canelo later on this year?
Let's first of all characterize the information correctly. It's not news, it's rumors. It's not facts, it's rumors. And we can speculate and guess and gossip, but a lot of the so-called breaking news has been walked back by the parties involved. They're going to announce it, they're going to decide, and we're going to find out. Perfectly okay to gossip and speculate about it, but I don't put the word news on it. I don't put the word news on it. That's if you are a hardliner about how journalism should be conducted, that's what you do. Now, what will all the parties do? Well, Canelo really doesn't have to make the decision based on money, which is a great luxury for him, and he has definitely earned it. He has absolutely earned the right to call the shots. He has to decide which of these two pathways benefits him the most. Who does he want to work with? Who does he feel most comfortable with? Who does he want to face? Who are the best matchups for him? I think one of the key elements here is the absolute true animosity between him and Golovkin. He is probably very reluctant to give Golovkin a third payday. And perhaps there's an offer on the table that grudgingly brings him in to make it happen. And Golovkin's got to be aware of this. And as we spoke earlier, I'm all but convinced this would be his cash out fight and he'd be done. So any discussion about him facing Jaime Munguia, I don't really see it unless this deal doesn't come along. So can Canelo swallow his distaste for Golovkin, which is absolutely real, long enough to make this thing happen? I do think he has the upper hand in a fight with a 40-year-old Golovkin. He's gotten a lot better since their last fight. So it's certainly not the most sure thing matchup from the Golovkin camp side. But again, does he want to walk out with that check? Maybe. Bivol is no pushover for Canelo either. That on the opposite side, he is the fighter that's a very tricky question. I think that Canelo has a lot better shot against the duo of Charlo and Benavidez because they're very predictable guys. They have talent. They'll give them a good fight, but you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting. Although I just saw Benavidez working out at his new camp in San Diego, and damn, that kid looks good. And on a side note, Benavidez's thoughts about Canelo were, listen, I get it. He wants to hold out and, wait until he absolutely has to fight me. I don't have a belt. I don't bring anything to him. He wants to wait me out. He said, but I'm only going to get better, and I'm 25 years old. He needs to take me on now or he's going to be in trouble. And I don't think he's wrong about that. And Canelo is proved to be an extremely smart matchmaker for himself. Now that he controls his own career, he has not put one step wrong. So I'll be very interested to see what he and Eddie decide to do. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him go either direction. He's been treated very well by PBC. He's been treated very well by Matchroom. I know he personally likes Eddie Hearn a lot. They kind of seem to have a bromance going on. They're on the same wavelength. He keeps getting Eddie, new Dolce & Gabbana pajamas for his collection. Whether that makes any difference, I'm not sure. But until we get the official word, it's fun to talk about. We can chit-chat about all the rumors and so forth, but we really should not call it news. Not right now.
Thanks for the clarification. And yeah, you're right.
Did I make myself clear?
You're right. There are.
I get it. I have strong opinions on this because I'm a classically, traditionally, old school, there are rules and ethics trained journalist. And I get it that a lot of the boxing media, comports themselves in a different way. And I completely get that.
And yeah, it is technically a rumor, and there are more than one options on the table. You're right. There is also been talk about Canelo fighting Charlo, WBC, Jamal Charlo, WBC champion at 160 pounds. Don't know where direction he's going to go, but yeah. If this goes through, Bivol will not be an easy fight. A lot of this is contingent, of course, on Golovkin, who still has a proposed date with Murata over in Japan. I'm hearing that could be rescheduled for April, but it is a wait and see. So there's been a lot of talk, but things are far from concrete. As a result, yeah, you're right, Kell. This is a rumor, and then we'll keep eye on this and see where this develops going forward. let's move on and talk and preview some fights here. Again, I'm going to try to split these up like I split the rest of the recaps. Uh, um, I'll go I'll go back to you, Gail. The big fight of the weekend is Josh Taylor, undisputed junior welterweight champion. He consolidated all the titles with his win over Ramirez last summer. Finally makes his return to the ring to defend those belts against number one uh, mandatory WBO challenger Catterall. Fight's going to take place this Saturday in Scotland. And look, Taylor, one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. I like how he fights a lot. I think he's not getting the attention that he should. Being, I believe, the only undisputed champion in terms of men, right? Can't forget Clarissa Shields and well, she's technically
We
not
were just
undisputed.
talking about an undisputed champion.
I'm talking about Jessica McCaskill. That's what I'm talking about at 147.
Yeah.
So
For the men, you've also got Canelo.
Canelo, that's right, Canelo as well. But yeah, Taylor makes his return, his triumphant return to Scotland, fighting a Catterall who he sat on the shelf, right, for Taylor to fight Ramirez for the undisputed title. He gets his shot now. I make Taylor the favorite, but I think that Catterall, he's no slouch. He's a decent dog. I think he's going to make Taylor go rounds here. I think it's going to be a better fight than many people anticipate. Your thoughts?
I'm sorry, who was that aimed at?
You, Gail.
Oh, gotcha. I think this is going to be a victory lap for Taylor. You know, he has really, really wanted this fight at home. He's been on the road a long, long time. Good for him. God knows he earned it. And I think even though he beat Jose Ramirez convincingly and he is the unified super lightweight champion, I'm still not sure if he's got the respect for his accomplishments. So I find that he's highly motivated. He's at home. It is a somewhat of a domestic fight. He's fighting a Brit. So you've got the England versus Scotland rivalry, which will be fun. But damn, I think Taylor will take care of business. I really do. I don't think Catterall will embarrass himself. He'll give a good account of himself. He is undefeated. He's a southpaw. He's not particularly powerful. He's only got a 50% knockout ratio. And probably the top name on his slate, what would you say? Maybe O'Hara Davies is the top name on his resume as far as a
Pretty
win.
much.
I'd say Tyrone McKenna, who's the domestic fighter. But you know what? They'll put on a good show for the fans. Boy, the British fans have gotten two big shows, two big domestic shows, 2 weekends in a row. Some of you may have seen Terrence Crawford's social media comment this week saying when he got back from seeing the Brook and Khan fight, how much he enjoyed himself, and commented that the British boxing fans are the best fans in the world. Bud, I got to agree with you. They love their fights. This is going to be great fun for them. I really think Taylor will take it. I wouldn't go so far as to say a cakewalk or a beatdown, but I would say handily.
That fight is going to take place in Glasgow. It's going to be airing live on ESPN Plus on the same night in Vegas. Daniel, Chris Colbert, who's one of the better fighters at 130 pounds, doesn't get talked about enough. Making his return to the ring, fighting a guy by the name of Hector Luis Garcia. I admit here I don't know much about Luis Garcia. If you could provide some information, please do. Against a Colbert, who I think is right there. We talk a lot about Shakur. We talk a lot about Valdez at 130 pounds, but I would put Colbert right in that mix.
Yeah, it was probably this is one of those fights that's pretty much set up to at least set up probably the logical challenger to the winner of Valdez Stevenson. And Cobra's up there. He has a skill set to do it. He has toughness to do it. I don't know, unfortunately, don't know much about his opponent, but when it's a top rank card, I kind of expect this much. So this is probably going to be, like I said, a stay busy fight, something that sets him up for to be like one of the challengers for the winner of Stevenson versus Valdez. Barring anything major, barring any shocking losses, probably would expect it to happen.
Also on that card, Gil, on paper, a pretty interesting matchup between Gary and Antoine Russell and Viktor Postol. I mean, look, the Russell brothers, we all know who they are. Gary Russell, established, right? Former WBC champion. But of the rest of the Russell brothers, Antoine may be the most talented of the younger brothers. I think this fight against Postol is a right fight, right time for him. Postol, I think, is a little bit long in the tooth. At his best, this would be a dangerous fight. It still is to a large degree if Postol has anything left. But if Russell is the fighter that many people think he is, he should win this. Or at least on paper, he's the favorite.
Yeah, he should, but this should be an interesting fight. Postal is no pushover. He's tricky. He's awkward. And I always like to see an up and coming fighter or an ambitious young fighter like Colbert fight somebody who is a mutual opponent of other guys in the division so we can measure them against each other. So, we sort of triangulate, right? So when we see Colbert's performance against Postal, what are we going to think of? We're going to think of Terence Crawford's performance against Viktor Postol. How do they match? How do they contrast? That's where the interest is to me in this fight. So, pardon me, not Colbert, Russell. So I'm looking forward to seeing, how he approaches him, how he does it differently, how he does it better if he does. So there's a lot to be interested in this fight. And at least he fights more often than his brother.
One final fight here on this card, Daniel, the return of Jerwin Ancajas. He's been out of the ring for a good bit, uh, fighting Fernando Montiel. Again, I don't know much about this guy, but Ancaja, who's has some potential big fight down the line. Your thoughts on his return to the ring against Martinez?
About time. I'll
Yeah,
say about time. Yeah, Carhas has been unfortunately lost himself in a bit of a shuffle when it comes to the picture of the weight classes that he's been around. Hopefully, with this fight, he'll start picking it up because obviously the major fights in that neighborhood are starting to come up. So that's going to be an interesting picture of what he puts himself in. And at the end of the day, it's a good stay busy fight. And I don't expect much out of anything surprising when it comes into that fight. He does match himself pretty well. So I do hope that this is going to be probably good victory and get some lined up, like you mentioned, bigger fights down the line.
sorry, my apologies. And one final fight, I'm going to include both of you, and if you have an opinion on it, the following day on the 27th in London, the Zone card, Lawrence Okoli putting up his WBO cruiserweight title. I believe this is a mandatory title defense against Cieslak. Opinions, please.
Well, Coley, this is really interesting fight because Coley's been an interesting character when it comes to the cruiserweight picture. He's not that attractive as far as excitement. You don't have like that clamoring where you say like a Coley is going to be like a knockout artist at cruiserweight. But he is skilled. He is skilled. He is tall, and he is a tough kid. It's one of the reasons why he is a WBO champion. So yeah, this is a mandatory defense, and this is born like should Canelo actually make a jump to cruiserweight because he has talked about it. Like Coley has talked about it. Why not? Why not put on the showcase performance? You already know you have a good relationship with promoters when it comes to Eddie Hearn. And if that jump is necessary, you can line yourself up to get that payday. Otherwise, you gotta continue to build that cruiserweight division. And because there's a lot of characters in that division that picked up where they left off before Usyk. So there's plenty of challengers down the line in the future. Brutus would actually probably be a good unification if a colleague passes through this test.
Absolutely, and I think we're going to start slow down. Uh, put a closer on this particular episode. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Olaf for joining us in the chat, on the live chat, on the live show, I should say. If you like what you heard this evening, play or checking us out on a delay here on YouTube, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're checking us out on other podcast platforms, please make sure to follow us. Um, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, we'd love to hear a review from y'all. A 5-star review will get read on the show. Going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first, as always. End the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News in White Fights. Let the folks know where they can find you. Talking boxing, talking media. Occasionally checking you out on TMZ Live. Let them know where to hit you up.
I will, Michael, but I bet I know where you're going to be Sunday because I know what a big Lawrence Okolie fan you are. You're right in, aren't you? You've been rough on our man there. Well, let's see what he's got in the tank. I am all for Sunday fights. I am all for it. So right there, they made me happy. We got a fight card to watch on Sunday. You'll know that I'm watching that card on Sunday, and in between and all around it, you can find me at Communities Digital News, which is COMM Digi News, comdiginews.com, and also nyfights.com, which has got a lot going on. So keep an eye on our platform. We have a new podcast there as well, with our pal Abe Gonzalez, and lots of other content. You know, because pound for pound, I mean, we can only fill up so much for you. You gotta get to Three Kings. You got to get to the rest of us to fill up your dance card the rest of the week.
I go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk boxing, want to talk professional wrestling. Let the folks know where they can hit you up. Or for those who want to talk NBA, especially as it pertains to the Miami Heat. I forgot about that. Anyway, let them know where they can find you.
Yes, first you can find me on Twitter, Buxton on RAWQZ99. Definitely catch me on there, yeah. And yeah, that it hurt a little bit today. Dragic signing to the Nets, but they do need him. They do need somebody to back up Kyrie when he's not playing. And this is good. It is going to be interesting last hopefully month coming into it because the checkbook's opening up, and God, I just hope by the next couple of weeks Canelo finally makes a decision. He has been holding up 3 weight divisions for way too long.
Yeah, far too long. Make up your mind, Canelo. Make up your mind. This being a boxing tease, I don't care how popular you are. That's not a good look. And by extension, Joshua Usyk. Now that Fury and Whyte They got their situation finalized. It's about time you guys we hear word in terms of rematch, of a definitive date, locale, etc. We need to hear something from you guys, from y'all as well. Um, if for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is. Fitness, even though I'm on the mend from an badly injured toe right now, I'm still I'm trying to get something in. Put it that way. I'm trying to get it in. I'm trying to adjust. Anyway, if you want to talk about any of those topics with me, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. Um, as I stated at the beginning of the show, for those who want to find out any and all information on Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you would like to email us, do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find links to where to follow us on social media, where to follow us on social media, where to follow us, the podcast, on all podcast platforms. Um, where you can donate, catch me a PayPal donation link, and even links to Beachbody on Demand, and which once again, I would really take advantage of that. At the very least, take advantage of the free 2-week trial, which runs throughout the year. On the next episode, we will do a recap um, of Taylor Catterall, of Colbert, of Ancajas, Colbert and Garcia, Ancajas, Martinez, Gary Antoine Russell, Viktor Postol, as well as the fight between Okolie and Cieslak. We will also do a preview of really good fight that's happening on March the 4th. We mentioned Jose Ramirez during our discussion about Josh Taylor. He returns to the ring. Who's fighting a Jose Pedraza. Very, very solid junior welterweight match, is going to happen in Fresno. On the undercard, the return of Gabe Flores, who was really suffered an upset loss. It was really, really beat up in the process, right? He's making his return to the ring, fighting a guy by the name of Montoya. And that's on the 4th. On the 5th, fight that really got Gail's attention, as in her hometown of San Diego. Really potential, really, really outstanding fight, as Chocolatito Gonzalez is fighting Julio Cesar Martinez. Martinez is the current WBC flyweight champion, moving up to 115 pounds to fight Chocolatito. Will you be in the house, Gail?
Will I be in the house? Will I be in the house? Let me throw a rock at the damn place. Well, yes, I'll be in the house. I'll be here all week. Yes, you bet. You bet. I am looking forward to it. Should be a fun week leading up, and great night of boxing.
On the undercard of that, you have Mauricio Lara, who scored one of the bigger upsets of 2021 when he just destroyed Josh Taylor. He's making his return against a fighter by the name of Sanchez. Quick word before Gail, any other fights or local talent or fighters we should keep an eye on?
The other fighter that is in a very similar position on that date is Angel Fierro. So you have two guys who scored major upsets when they were sort of last minute replacements. The British commentators have been calling them mystery Mexicans. So it's not quite a hometown fight for them, but it's pretty damn close across the border. So that's a very nice placement on the card for them. I need to look carefully over at the rest of the card, and God knows, you have a lot of switch outs at the last minute these days. So I'm just hoping the rest of the card, God forbid, holds its act together. I'm telling you. And I'll be very interested to see who else is in the house that night watching the fights. I can only imagine who else just might be on hand. I am going to stall just a minute to look over the current lineup to see if there are any changes that got by any of us. The other two that are notable on the card, not locals particularly, Diego Pacheco, who is working with Team Benavides. Good-looking young super middleweight who has also been providing sparring for David and David for him. So that's awfully nice. He's an up-and-coming fighter that will be good for the fans to see. And Mark Castro out of Fresno. young fighter, lightweight. Sue, who would love to get up there and tangle with the big boys at lightweight. He's got a fight on the card against an opponent that should not give him a whole lot of trouble. Um, Actually, the one fighter on the card who is local is a female super lightweight, Jessica Juarez. And the last time I saw her fight was before the pandemic. Um, and she had a super uh, outcome in her fight. Won a really good fight, even though it was a majority decision. It was a barn burner. So I'm glad to see her stepping back in. She's young, so hopefully the pandemic break hasn't done her too much damage. She's only 22, a southpaw, and that girl can bang. So she looks like she'll be the local on that card. But we'll certainly get into it in the shows to come before it takes
Yeah,
off.
absolutely. So we'll be covering. We'll previews those fights in particular. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us live. Shout out to Olaf, a regular listener. For Gail from Communities Digital News and NY Fights, for Daniel from the Inscriber, as well as for Boxing News. Um, this has been episode 353 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. I am your host, Michael. We will see you guys next week. See you guys next time. Everyone, have a good evening. Good night.